know anything about it.
I don't know what the renewal date is.
Yeah.
I know that we,
I thought it was in July.
I think it is.
around
For the health insurance, it is, but I'm not sure for the liability insurance.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like, I think we tackled that issue in like February
Or March.
or possibly March. I mean, I think that's when we actually, it might have been January or February, before I think about it, when we,
okay. I know that it's not, I'm pretty confident that it's not running from 1st of January through December 31st.
Well, to me, this issue comes down to three things, and the lowest two on the ladder are liability and cost. Cost is a definite consideration from the standpoint of the fact that the city of Gardner, I don't think, can afford an additional $100,000 or $90,000 or $80,000 a year expenditure on security measures that are dictated under House Bill 2052 as amended, which tells me that passing or approving a letter of exemption is basically kicking the can down the road until one of two things happens. Either this statute is adjudicated at the state Supreme Court level and thrown out, or until there is a change to the makeup of a legislative body of the state of Kansas and they would be overturned. From that perspective, I don't see a lot of value in moving forward with a letter of exemption. I don't think that taking away the rights to conceal carry, which are guaranteed not only by that statute but also by the Constitution of the state of Kansas and by the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, is a wise idea. Any individual who has their rights abridged by such a letter of exemption, to me, means that everybody else's rights are also compromised. I will be voting no on this evening, and I do hope that the other members of this body will follow suit.
There are questions or comments?
so, kind of recapping what we talked about last time, we could be sued, I'm asking you, Ryan, we could be sued if we keep the signs up and someone says they didn't have a right to a firearm to defend themselves, but we could also be sued if the signs come down and we allow firearms by someone who was shot who didn't have a firearm. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, let me make clear that you can be sued for any reason.
But I mean, they would have a pretty good case in either case, right? I mean, either party can claim that they didn't have a right to defend themselves,
Right.
or that someone was in the building with a gun who, posed a threat.
We could talk about
So what
may or may not be a more viable claim, but like I said earlier, that's a lot of supposition, and we don't really have a basis to kind of empirically develop a authoritative opinion on that because this is a new law, right?
Right. But we do know that we would not be covered if employees, and I'm assuming that the employees would be allowed to carry a firearm.
Well, like I said, this has been a conversation with Carrot. I do not know that Carrot has, their underwriting has taken action to authoritatively put that in their underwriting or in their policies. My understanding from a partner of mine, Greg Goheen, who's been in conversations with Carrot about this issue, is that is the way that they were leaning, but I don't know that is going to be where they ultimately end up. All I can do is share the best information I have.
So I guess what I hear here is that we buy ourselves time and find out where all these issues shake out. I mean, it doesn't
It's up
seem
to you. Yeah.
It doesn't seem to me to be wise to make a decision on a lot of unknowns. I mean, the insurance is a big unknown. The way courts may look at the issue from someone who may be harmed in either case is an unknown. I don't know. To me, it seems like there's no harm. We can always go back 6 months from now and say we've got a solution. I mean, there could be more clarification from the state. Seems like a no-risk deal to buy some time.
Tend to agree, and the main reason because of some of those unknowns, because of, okay, right, and if Kansas, because the educational insurance carriers has made a move, someone else could. The only reason I say that is because it's either now or never. And if in June next year, July next year, when the plans are up and they say, we'll cover you, but your premiums are going to go higher now because you've taken the signs down, we've locked ourselves into that. We don't have an opportunity to change that path. That's it. From now on, we're going to pay those costs regardless. Right now, we don't know if that is or isn't, and, the marketplace will be open. Maybe someone will come in and cover communities that take the signs down, but there's no guarantee that they will come and that they won't carry premiums higher. Say, hey, we're the only business in town. We're going to charge you what it takes to do it, and that's the reason why the waiver is in place for us to allow to find out some of those unknowns, from my opinion. And again, at this time next year, we realize there hasn't been any changes at the state level, and we've got clarification on these some things. The science can come down at that point. We understand that there's going to be costs with the plans and implementation and some of the things that we'd like to do there, but there's also unknowns that we can't account for at this point, and that this leaves us an opportunity to be able to react to those when they come through, where not submitting the waiver means we can't react. We have to make a change, and those changes are going to be dictated in one way or the other if changes come about.
Well,
I understand it's a big if.
I have a comment too. Mr. Melton's point and the liability issue, we're already opening ourselves up for the liability issue because we're only talking about City Hall. The other ones you can do concealed carry, so
Exactly.
we're talking about one building. We're already opening ourselves up, so.
I think that's
I guess from my perspective, I kind of went back through, even when we talked about the 6-month exemption, the feedback that I've received on this topic, and kind of tallied up, and I mean, quite frankly, it's not overwhelming at all by any means. There's been 8 people who have basically said, please don't support the exemption. There's been 14 who said, please support the exemption. So, again, not overwhelming feedback by any means, which tells me either people don't care or people aren't aware of what this means. So when it comes down to me, and from a City Hall perspective, it comes down to me an employee liability issue. And the bulk of our employees are in City Hall. So the unknowns there, I'm kind of with Heath in that I don't know that. Do we want to lock ourselves into something that only 6 months later we're going to find out our premiums are going to go up? I don't know, whatever it could be, and or do we want to take the exemption, wait till we get our insurance, and figure out at that point in time what we need to do? So.
Seems like this might be a good time to entertain a motion. Unless further questions. Which, of course, we could have further questions after a motion.
I move that we direct the city administrator to prepare a letter of notification to the Kansas Attorney General of the city's intent to exempt its buildings from HB 2052 under Section 2I for the 4-year exemption period as allowed under said statute.
Second.
Motion Freeman, second Fodovich, that we direct the city administrator to prepare a letter of notification to the Kansas Attorney General of the city's intent to exempt its buildings from HB 2052 under Section 2I for the 4-year exemption period as allowed under state statute. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Okay. Oh. Steve, it seemed like you were getting ready to...
Yeah, I thought that there was going to be additional...
Well, there certainly is.
Okay.
You certainly can
And I understand...
speak or ask questions.
From a liability perspective, I think we can at least say any good lawyer worth of salt is going to find a way to sue if there's a case. I mean, whether it's a state law, federal law, whether it's for the grieved, a person who is shot by an active shooter in the building, doesn't have an opportunity to defend themselves, or whether it's an accidental shooting by an individual who might be carrying concealed that just has an accident, that it just happens. Okay, from the standpoint of cost. Security measures, we understand that there's going to be some expenditures regardless of how that goes down. The thing that we're doing, as I said before, we're buying time to see, one, how liability might